I'm bored. After removing the corpse from beneath the gold and showing it to my crew, I haven't really got anything to do, except sit here, in my chair. If there is one thing the gods forgot, it is to look back at the past. And now my life revolves around the past. So what's the point of the future? If history repeats itself, then why can't I just become a goddamn king? Probably because I focused my efforts on Alice. We first met when I was a soldier for Kel Maria, a Marine. I was really drunk. At a bar with the rest of my team, we had gotten an early leave and we were waiting to be assigned. And there was this beautiful woman, a woman that I had a hard time forgetting, Alice. She was standing in the corner and had mercenary painted all over her. Her hair was cut short and rough, like a wild animal's, and her clothes looked as if they were recently mauled by one. Her body language gave off a feeling of, don't mess with me, or you'll be in a whole lot of trouble. So I naturally went over and asked her for a favor. And thanks to my patented, irresistible drunken charm and wit, she decided to hear me out. I told her about one of the places that I did not want to get stationed. An experimental facility where a lot of guards have previously gone missing. And so I paid her to check it out. My curiosity got the better of me. I had no idea why she accepted it as soon as I asked her to do it. No questions asked. She didn't even charge me much. I told her the days the facility was closed, the ins and outs, all the information I knew in my drunken state. Of course, as a soldier, I could see the profit in apprehending a criminal trying to infiltrate an experimental facility. I could probably have become a sergeant if I had chosen to do that. But the plans changed. I got so infatuated with the work that she was doing, the way that she was planning, I began to think like her. Although, she didn't have a regard for any of the guards posted and just marked them with an X, assuring me that there was nothing to worry about. Naturally, I assumed she was going stealth, and on the day of the raid, I saw how wrong I was. She went venturing through the facility covered in her own blood and killing anything that moved. I must have seen her get shot hundreds of times, but every time, she got right back up. This idea of immortality was far beyond anything I had imagined, or could ever wish in the military. Mesmerized, I continued to follow her through the facility, until she reached a room containing nothing but a large metal cage, packed wall to wall with children and corpses. Once she reached it, suddenly an escort of multiple soldiers ran by me, armed with harpoon guns, oddly, not giving me presence a second thought. But if they were giving me a free pass, I was gonna abuse the hell out of it. Backing myself behind a nearby corner, I peeked around to see the soldiers surrounding Alice, and without hesitation, they fired the big hooked javelins through her arms and legs, pinning her to the ground beneath her feet. It was a brutal, archaic tactic, but it held her, causing her to scream out in such agony that I and all the captive children shared her pain. Only after she rendered immobile did the head honcho, judging by his choice of wardrobe, showing his surprisingly handsome face, but the way he spoke and articulated his words sent chills down my spine. His words still haunt me to this day.
Our creation has returned to us.
I pull up two of my finest weapons, my revolvers. Now back then I hadn't gotten any modifications, so it was nothing but a pair of standard .45 caliber revolvers. And they weren't cheap. In terms of immediate threats, there were 7 guards, excluding the Baron, whose combat abilities I had yet to assess. Caution to the wind, then. I still don't know exactly why I did it. Looking at my track record, I know I'm no hero. Not even in the slightest. But something about this situation screamed, "You gotta do something, man." So, I did. Pivoting around the corner of the corridor, I dropped to one knee, took aim, and fired both revolvers. One of the bullets hit a guard center mass, piercing his heart, while the other bullet splattered another guard's brains all over the wall. 2 down, 5 guards to go. They reacted quickly. Immediately, 2 of them grabbed the Baron and started running, leaving the other 3 to cover their retreat. They returned fire, but I was already in motion, simultaneously rolling and discharging my weapons. 3 down. The remaining 2 guards hid behind some support divots in the wall, and I did the same. It's at this point when things started to get blurry. My body was on autopilot. my instincts and experience guiding me from one motion to the next. Cover fire. Move up, the new cover. Reload, rinse, and repeat. A fourth and fifth corpse hit the floor, and I came back to my senses. I hadn't even taken a step when I felt a sharp burning pain in my left leg. A musket ball. I looked down and inspected the wound. No exit wound, so that complicated things. But the bleeding was a relatively slow leak, so major bloodways were safe for the moment. Too bad that didn't stop the fact that, without the earlier rush of adrenaline, it was beginning to hurt like hell. I limped forward, approaching the carnage and captives, counting my current ammunition. I had 6 bullets left. Furious and frustrated, I emptied all 6 rounds in the surrounding guards' carcasses, splattering their blood all over my fine red marine coat. I'm glad I wore red. After holstering my revolvers, I started pulling out the large javelins from Alice's limbs. The reverse angled hooks were making it difficult for me though, making Alice cry out as the hooks tore at her flesh. It wasn't an angry scream. It was more guttural, hellish. You would think that a woman of such formidable prowess would have been used to this level of pain. Once she was free, she clambered up against the wall and looked at the brutally mutilated corpses. I looked over her legs as they rapidly healed, but she seemed to be fainting. Weakly, she opened her hand and a bloody soaked key clattered onto the floor. As I picked it up, my ingenious intuition told me that it was for the cage full of the innocent children she had been trying to save. I moved over to the cage of the now silent children. Naturally, they all shuffled to the other side of their confinements, opposite of me. Their eyes told me that they were afraid of me, but who could blame them? I mean, I just murdered several people in front of them. With a series of satisfying mechanical clicks, the key fit into the cage lock perfectly. After a few charming words and gestures, the kids began to realize I wasn't there to kill them. Everything was going smoothly. Our retreat, on the other hand, was less than perfect. I had to carry Alice outside, an endeavor which my injured leg loudly protested against the entire time. Upon reaching the tree line outside, I thought we'd gotten away, but Alice suddenly sprung up from my grip and pinned me against a tree, urgently whispered to play dead. Before I had a chance to process what was happening, I heard a rain of gunfire, muskets firing upon children, and Alice being riddled with bullets. I witnessed every child's lifeless body crumble to the ground. They didn't even have a chance to cry out. I felt a rush of anger flow through my body, but Alice repeated her command as she stood herself up. The soldiers that had fired on us were all reloading, meaning we had at least 20 whole seconds before they could fire again. Alice didn't waste a single one as she grabbed her knife from her belt and began to work her magic. Despite being stabbed multiple times, bludgeoned to death, and almost blown up by a grenade, she didn't stop her beautiful rampage until all of them but one were dead. That one man was wearing a beautiful dress uniform. He was a duke. At that point, I wasn't playing dead anymore. I couldn't move. I had lost so much blood. I can't remember what happened afterwards. The next thing I could recall is that I woke up in our apartment and we began our planning. Nice memories. Dog slowly presses one of his paws onto my leg, effectively ending this trip down memory lane. I sigh and slowly look up towards the door. Someone was knocking. "Come in," my voice rasps. The door creaks as it is opened by Jack Jucklek, a black-haired male and probably my best friend. He is wearing a tight-fitting white shirt and black vest. Unsurprising, my feet pressed against the floor. As I try to stand myself up, I could still feel the pain in my back after having been slammed into a wall on the deck. At that time, I barely noticed it in my adrenaline-filled rush. Jack is quick with his words.
You alright, mate?
Better than ever, I say with a smile.
Got your shiny new ship here for you.
Jack said, his eyes staring right past me.
Probably more your type. You definitely fancy it more than this GI piece of junk.
Oh yeah? Well then, let's go ahead and scrap it, I reply. I move towards Jack, who begins pulling up a small pouch of materials, most likely plastic explosives. Plant it on the ether core and book it.
Aye, Captain.
Jack replies and places the pouch into my hand. A small chuckle escaped my lips. Jack turns around to start walking, whilst I begin running out of the captain's cabin to find a staircase leading downwards. My boots smack harshly against the metallic plates as I approach the pressurized door at the end of the staircase. I look around for the rebreather, but someone must have forgotten to put it back at its station. It doesn't matter. Placing the explosives doesn't take more than a minute. My hands grasp the lever, holding the door as I inhale deeply and hold my breath. Twisting the lever, the door opens up and the wind begins flushing in from underneath, bringing with it the loud noise of the engines humming. The ether core in the middle of the massive room. My feet bring me closer to the target, the walkway feeling like it could give away in any minute, despite this being a high-grade ship. I start walking toward the man, one of my hands grabbing the throwing knife from my belt. I throw it forward, yet immediately disappears and hammers into a wall, hiding the propeller. Fuck. I don't have a lot of air. My hands slowly pull themselves up, and I can feel my lungs clenching for something to breathe. The Marine starts running towards me, yet I remain motionless. I need that rebreather bad. I pull my head up and allow the Marine to smack his hand up to my face, while one of my hands grasps for the back of his neck, and my knee pulls itself up to break into his abdomen. My other hand tries to grasp for his mask. The Marine swiftly pulls back and grabs a knife from his thigh holster. My mouth opens up. I can't take it anymore! I must. There's no breathable air here. He's running forward yet again. Instincts. I rely on my instincts. Once the knife encloses itself, I grasp the hand holding it, clenching it against the wall, which makes the Marine release the knife. My other hand grabs the knife and hammers it into his clavicle. The Marine drops onto the floor. I grab hold of the rebreather and pull it off of him, pressing it against my own face. Yes, air. This is what I need. I slowly turn my head to look at the Marine, who is crawling toward the side of the walkway. My turn. I rush towards him and kick him in the side, causing him to roll and fall off the walkway. Mission accomplished. A deafening, wet squelching can be heard throughout, and the ship begins to groan and list on one side. I grasp one of the open railing on the walkway and look down at the propellers. One is bent, broken, and covered with a new shiny coat of paint. Bad damage. But not enough to take the ship down. Not that it will matter in 2 minutes. The ship shudders and lets out a metallic shriek for a brief moment as I begin making my way to the door. I have to move quick. My feet begin to move with desperation. Pressurized door only centimeters away from my face. As I begin to struggle to hold myself straight whilst the ship is being a negative Nancy, I grasp the lever and hammer it to the side, opening up the door. After I stumble through the door, neglect to close it again. At this point in time, it doesn't matter. Less than a minute. I rush up the staircase. The sun. I could see it. Boom! The explosion goes off in the core, sending a shockwave through me and the surrounding atmosphere. The ship begins stalling and going downward. And once again, I stumble through a doorway to the deck, still wearing the rebreather. My knee hits the ground, yet I must move on. I immediately stand myself up and begin running toward the right side of the ship. Please place it where you always place it, Jack. Jumping off the ship, now plummeting toward the ocean, I notice the wooden merchant ship. My ship. My arms connect with the deck, holding onto it as best as I can. A feminine hand grabs mine and begins pulling me up. When I am finally on the deck again, I drop the rebreather and release a loud gasp for air. Alice squats herself down, one of her hands placing itself on my chest.
I got you, Captain. Let's see it sink, like we always do.
I might as well be unkillable. Tough as nails.